Let me see if you've grown taller. Anya quickly pulled Anton into her arms and caressed Anton's little head. Mommy, I miss you so much. She could feel Anton's longing for her, but she could also tell that he was trying not to miss her too much to prevent the guilt in Anya's heart from deepening. He was only 4 years old, but he was very sensitive to such thoughts. When Anya thought of this, she felt more troubled in her heart. Anya hugged him affectionately. Laura's mother-in-law, Wendy, who was watching over May from afar, only then looked up to discover Anya's presence. Wendy looked to be in her 50s or 60s. She was wearing a gray floral jacket and black cloth shoes. She did not know Anya, so she shouted loudly, "Who are you?" Just as Wendy's voice faded, May looked up and immediately recognized Anya, so she quickly ran over to greet her. "Wow, you have become even more beautiful." Anya did not have time to reply to Wendy because May threw herself into Anya's embrace. At the same time, Wendy also stepped in front of Anya. She looked Anya up and down and found that she was a woman who was quite good-looking. Anya's style was classy and youthful, and she gave off a no-nonsense vibe. No wonder Anya came across as if she did not like other people and was not married yet. Anya also influenced her son and daughter-in-law into raising her child for her. But when Wendy saw Anya bringing an armful of gifts, her expression eased up and she asked, "Are you Laura's good friend?" "Yes, hello." Anya quickly stood up and smiled at Wendy. "Why do you have all these gifts?" Wendy looked at the gifts in Anya's hands again. "Laura has worked so hard to help me take care of Anton. I wanted to bring a small gift as a token of my appreciation." Anya smiled, and it was evident that she was completely sincere. Sometimes she was overwhelmed with gratitude that she had such a good friend. "Laura really dotes on this little guy." When Wendy said this, she realized she was feeling ungracious, but had no desire to change her attitude. She also could not discern if Laura was stupid or fake. Laura did not discriminate between May and Anton. It caused her frustration and a little bit of anger that Laura and her son provided for Anton so that he actually ate well and wore the same caliber clothing as May. "Anya, you came alone today. Didn't you bring any friends?" Wendy looked behind Anya, a certain questioning in her tone. "Anton is very pitiful. He is so young and has no father." "Ma'am!" Anya knew it was rude to interrupt others, but she did not want Wendy to continue talking in front of Anton. Her heart already felt dead. She did not want to find a boyfriend. Of course, she believed that Anton, at a young age, would not be willing to call a stranger his father. Anya only wanted to work hard and earn money now. When she had a certain amount of savings, she would take Anton away from Laura's house. When that happened, she would take good care of Anton. "Are you still unhappy?" Wendy heard Anya interrupt him and was instantly unhappy. "I am doing this for your own good. You are a young woman, no matter how much money you make, no matter how good your job is. In this end, women still need to rely on men." Anya used a lot of strength to resist and did not argue with Wendy loudly. If it was someone else who had said this to Anya, even if Anya did not argue with her, she would still have turned around and left. "Miss Slayton, I feel that Laura might need to know that I have arrived. Why don't we go upstairs now?" Anya tried to change the topic. "Why don't you need my advice?" Wendy knew that Anya did not want to listen, but the more Anya did not want to listen, the more she wanted to state her thoughts. If Anya was angry, that would be the best. If she took her son away in a fit of anger, it would save her family a lot of trouble. Wendy ignored Anya's frustrated expression and continued to say, "You can't possibly choose to not marry anyone for the rest of your life. There is not many good men nowadays. Laura had good taste and good fortune. My son is the only successful person to come to our town. Laura is very lucky to have married him. If someone takes a fancy to you, you should quickly marry him, especially since you have a burden with you." "Excuse me?" Anya loudly interrupted Wendy's words. She was very often offended by Wendy's words and did not agree at all. Laura got lucky? Laura had a cheerful personality and a good family background. Other than having the same degree and career as Laura, how could her son be compared to Laura? Moreover, Anya would never allow anyone to belittle her son as a burden. Her son was the most important thing in her life. After all, Wendy was the mother-in-law of her good friend. She should not have made the relationship awkward, but she could not allow Wendy to hurt her son. "I don't want to talk about these things now. I am also living a good life, so I don't need you to worry me. Let's go upstairs and see Laura." After Anya finished speaking, she tugged Anton's arm and walked away, leaving Wendy and May standing where they were. Anton was pulled upstairs by Anya. He turned his head to look at the old lady, who was so angry that her chest rose and fell. Her words would echo in his ears for a long time. Wendy saw Anya's tough attitude and was instantly enraged. She carried May and quickly walked forward. When she caught up to Anya, Wendy angrily snorted and brushed past Anya and Anton. She walked straight forward and muttered to herself as she walked, "You don't even deserve to be able to get married." After Wendy finished speaking, she did not even look at Anya and walked straight into the house. Anya looked at Wendy's back, and a wave of anger instantly erupted in her heart. She took a few breaths in an attempt to calm down. At that moment, Anton used a small hand to tug on Anya's sleeve. "Mom!" Anya saw that Anton seemed to have something to say and squatted down. Her eyes were parallel to Anton's. She mustered a smile just for him and said, "Anton, what is it, sweetheart?" "Mom, what is a burden?" Anton bit his lips. His crystal clear eyes were full of caution, which made Anya's chest hurt. Anton was only 4 years old. He should be carefree and lively. When had he become so sensitive? Did he listen to what others said? Anya's nose felt sore as she held back tears. She reached out her hand and gently touched his cute face. She smiled and said, "You don't need to know about these things. You only need to know that I love you very much." Anton didn't look happy when he heard Anya's words. He slowly lowered his head as if he were thinking seriously. She squatted on the ground and looked at her son, waiting for him to finish speaking. He thought for a moment, then raised his head and asked seriously, "Am I your burden? Is it because of me that you are unhappy?" "No!" Anya immediately denied Anton's words. She did not want to plant the seed of self-blame in his heart at such a young age. Anya held Anton's small face and looked into his eyes and said seriously, "Anton, remember you are not a burden. You are the most precious treasure. You are my courage to live. So only when you are happy will I be happy." "Really? I'm precious? I'm happy to hear that, Mommy." Anton's eyes suddenly lit up. "Of course it's true." Anya nodded her head heavily and said to Anton earnestly, "Anton, do you know that there is a lot of people in this world? These people all have their own thoughts, but many of them are wrong. However, they are unwilling to change their minds. They might even force others to agree with their ideas. What we need to do is not be affected by their wrong ideas." Anya saw the confused look on Anton's face. She realized that her words were probably beyond his understanding, so she smiled and explained, "In general, you only need to remember the words of the people you love." "Okay." Anton's tender face finally showed a smile. "The person I love is my mother, so I should listen to my mother. That grandmother is an old woman. I should respect her, but I shouldn't listen to her wrong words. My baby is so smart. She kissed Anton's round face and said, I think Laura is anxious too. Let's hurry up. Okay. He nodded and put his hand in her soft hand. They walked forward together. Under the sunlight, they held hands and walked toward the house happily. Anya, you're here! Laura quickly welcomed her and Anton, who had come to the door, her face to be somewhat embarrassed. Anya saw Laura's expression and knew it was Wendy who told her about the matter of her contradicting her downstairs. She reckoned that she had probably been a bit overly dramatic. However, Laura was also a reasonable person. She knew what kind of person her mother-in-law was, so when she approached her for a quick hug, she whispered into her ear, Anya, my mother-in-law is an old-fashioned person. Whatever she said, please don't take it to heart. I understand, indicating that she didn't mind. Laura let out a sigh of relief when she heard Anya's response. She squatted down and looked at Anton, and then she said, Anton, you play for a while outside. Are you hungry? I made your favorite meal for you. Quickly, go wash your hands. Wendy, who was sitting at the side, was very upset when she heard Laura speaking to them. She looked at her and said, I really don't know why you become a mother. You haven't taken care of your own daughter, yet you're concerned with other people's children. May is already so thin. After Wendy finished speaking, she reached out and pinched May's chubby little arm. Laura instantly felt a little awkward. She turned her gaze to her husband Marshall, but he was currently fully engaged playing on his phone. He hadn't noticed her to pick up the signals she was sending his way. Anya also sighed slightly. She lifted her head to look at May, who was being hugged by Wendy, and said with a smile, May, look what I brought for you. This is your favorite Barbie doll, and it's a complete set. Wow, my favorite Barbie doll! When May heard that Anya had brought her a Barbie doll, her eyes lit up. She immediately escaped from her grandmother's embrace and ran towards Anya. Can I have it? Please, please? May ran in front of her and said while jumping, May, what do you need to do before asking for the gift? Laura looked at May and said seriously, Thank you. May's clear, childish voice sounded very pleasant. You are so obedient. After Anya finished responding, she passed the set of Barbie dolls to May. Although it had cost her a lot of money, May was happy and she felt pleased to be able to give her this gift. May happily took the dolls and ran to her small room to play. Laura said in embarrassment, Anya, you spent so much money to buy a gift for her. The toys in her room were almost piled up into a mountain. It's fine, as long as May is happy, Anya smiled and said, Anton is so troublesome for you here. I am a little embarrassed. After she said that, she held a bottle of vitamins in her hand and walked to Wendy's side and said, This is a health supplement I brought for you. I researched and found that it is good for your health. I hope you like it. Wendy received the gift indifferently. That was very thoughtful of you. Don't spend too much money in the future. It was the right thing to do. When Anya saw that Wendy was so polite and knew that she had bought the right gift, she finally found herself able to relax. She hoped that Wendy would make Anya feel more comfortable in her presence. Laura found herself a little embarrassed as she watched the interaction, so she walked to Anya's side and said, I still have some food that has not been cooked. Anya, come and help me in the kitchen. Okay, I will come with you. I need to wash my hands. Anya first nodded her head, then squatted down and picked up a gift. She looked at Anton and said, Baby, you can play with May. This is the train I bought for you. Okay. Anton took the train Anya gave him and went to his room to play with it. Wendy saw Anton walk into the room where May was playing with the toy. She averted her gaze and slowly walked to Marshall's side. Marshall had been laying on the sofa and using his phone to chat. Wendy looked towards the kitchen and lowered her voice. She looked like she wanted to say something, but she stopped herself. Mom, can you just say what you so badly want to say? Marshall said as he stared at his phone screen and asked impatiently. Anya left her child in your house to raise. How much does she give you each month? Wendy's eyes turned. This woman was clearly not a simple person. She was so generous to buy gifts for the entire family, she figured she must have other intentions. I don't know. Anyway, Anya seems to have transferred Anton's tuition and living expenses to our account on time. The money has always been more than what he needs. Marshall looked at the screen of his phone and seemed to be talking about a happy topic. His eyes lit up. But when he answered his mother's words, he was very impatient. When Wendy heard this, she nodded slightly. It turned out Anya would pay for her son's living expenses and kindergarten fees on time. However, she did not know if Anya had paid for her son and daughter-in-law's hard work. Thinking of this, Wendy looked towards the kitchen again. Laura and Anya were busy working in the kitchen as they chatted happily. Wendy curled her lips and stood up. She tiptoed to the side. Marshall, who was playing with his phone, caught a glimpse of Wendy, who wanted to eavesdrop. He did not stop her, but continued to chat. Wendy walked to the kitchen door with small steps. She pretended to tidy up and slowly approached the kitchen door. In the kitchen, Anya and Laura were still busy, so they did not notice Wendy eavesdropping outside the door. Laura, thank you for taking care of Anton. I am currently busy with work. Anton still needs someone to help him with so many things. Anya put the cut green pepper on a plate and said, It's nothing. Laura took a sip of the corn chowder. She smiled and said, You do what you have to do so you can get ahead at work and have some peace. I will take good care of Anton. Thank you. I mean it. Anya stopped what she was doing. When she thought of her current unemployment situation, her gratitude towards Laura became even deeper. Before she had come today, she had transferred all of her savings to Laura's bank account. Even so, it was still not enough. She did not suspect that when they were cooking just now, Laura had transferred the money back to her. Laura paused to tell her what she had done, and that the money was for her to use. To Anya, it felt that Laura seemed to be able to see the predicament she was facing with just a glance. She felt very lucky to have such a good friend. She knew she would repay the debt as soon as she was able. Laura, thank you again. However, you should just accept the money. I will transfer the rest of the money to your account next month. That's enough. Don't say any more. Laura quickly interrupted her words. She used a spoon to ladle the corn chowder into a bowl. Then she looked at Anya and said, Anya, you have many good points, except that you are stuck on being too polite. We have been good friends since the freshman year of college. I'm 1 year older than you. I'm still Anton's godmother. It's my pleasure to take care of him. But there's no buts. Laura pretended to be angry as she stared at Anya. I know you were stubborn and you are too embarrassed to give others trouble, but you know that I am your best friend, so you should listen to me before you listen to anyone else. We will handle Anton's living expenses and his kindergarten tuition. When you get a promotion and raise in your salary, marry a rich man, then return the money to me. When the time comes, we will just see if I'm willing to accept it. Anya saw Laura's serious look and smiled gratefully. She also did not continue to reject her good intentions. But in her heart, she had already made up her mind. As long as she found a job, she would immediately return the money to her. After all, Laura's husband's salary was not high. They already had plenty of responsibilities, and she was handling them more. Don't think about it anymore. Try the corn chowder I made. How does it taste? Laura saw that Anya was still thinking. She hurriedly poured the soup into a bowl and then passed the bowl to Anya. Anya took the bowl from Laura's hands and took a bite of the chowder. She exaggeratedly said, Wow, Laura, the chowder you made is really delicious. You are simply the model of a capable woman. If you think that is delicious, eat more. You've lost weight recently. Laura smiled at Anya, her heart breaking a little on the inside. She looked at her best friend, who had suffered so many setbacks in her life over the past few years. Since you are cooking today, of course. I want to have a good meal. Anya seemed to only be able to enjoy delicacies in Laura's home. Wendy snorted coldly from her nostrils. Her wrinkled face revealed a look of dissatisfaction. In her opinion, Anya did not seem like a person who had suffered a loss. No wonder she spent money to buy gifts. It turned out she did not want to pay Anton's living expenses and tuition fees.
Grandma, are you playing hide and seek here?
May, who had played enough Barbie dolls, suddenly stood beside her. She looked up and blinked her big eyes at Wendy. Her clear and melodious childlike voice could be heard in the kitchen. After Laura and Anya heard May's words, they went to the kitchen door to take a look. They saw that Wendy was still bent over with her ear against the wall. Wendy saw Laura and Anya's puzzled eyes and could only stand up awkwardly. She smiled at them.
I am looking for a rag.
That table is too dirty. You don't even wipe it. Right? Where is the cloth? Wendy said as she pretended to look for a cloth and left. May, who was still carrying the Barbie doll, looked at her back and said,
Grandma was squatting there just now. She clearly did not look like she was looking for a rag.
When they heard May's words, it confirmed that Wendy had been eavesdropping on their conversation just now. Laura smiled awkwardly and said apologetically to Anya, Anya, my mother-in-law is a little strange sometimes. Just ignore her, please. It's no big deal. Anya quickly shook her head. It's all right. Although Anya herself did not mind, she suddenly realized that Laura's situation wasn't all that great either. Laura had a conservative and conceited mother-in-law, and she also had an irresponsible husband. She had a lot of pressure in her life as well.
May, eat some big prawns. You will grow taller in the future.
Wendy first picked up the peeled prawn and placed it in a beautiful bowl. This is my godson's favorite honey-glazed pork. Laura also picked up some for Anton. I don't know if May is your biological daughter. You don't seem to love her like you love Anton. It seems you love the son of an outsider instead. Wendy muttered softly before putting a prawn in her mouth. However, although she said it softly, everyone at the dining table heard it. But Marshall acted as if he did not hear her and continued to stuff chowder into his mouth. Laura could only smile awkwardly and pretend as if she hadn't heard her. Anya was somewhat restless. Could it be that her mother-in-law had always treated Laura like this? If she stayed here all the time, would her situation get worse? Judging from Laura's mother-in-law's attitude, she seemed to not like Anton living here. What should she do? Just as Anya was thinking about the problem, Wendy spoke again. Miss Radcliffe, do you pay for Anton's living expenses at my son's house and his school fees too? You know, my son and daughter-in-law do not make a lot of money. They need to raise May and be able to take care of me. Anya bit her lips. She knew that Wendy heard the conversation between her and Laura in the kitchen. She did not get angry because Wendy had eavesdropped on their conversation. She only felt a little guilty. Because of her current predicament, it caused her good friend of many years to be embarrassed in front of her mother-in-law. I will transfer the money back to Laura's bank account immediately, Anya seemed to be guaranteeing. Yeah. Wendy heard Anya's words and nodded her head in satisfaction. She politely said, Miss Radcliffe, it is not that I am unreasonable. It is just that the current society is like this. Even if it was between brothers, they would clearly distinguish the money for the needs. So, I know. I will transfer the money. Anya smiled at Wendy and promised once again. Anya, there is no need. Laura, shh. She quickly interrupted Laura's words. She hoped that she would not continue to argue with her mother-in-law because the problems between a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law were eternal. Anya did not wish for Laura and her mother-in-law to have any conflict because of her. When Laura saw Anya's troubled expression, she immediately became furious. Ever since her mother-in-law came here last week, besides demanding she do housework to her preference, she had also been intent on finding her every flaw. Her mother-in-law felt that she was not worthy of Marshall. Now, she had actually interfered with her helping her friend. She had made her friend uncomfortable in her home. Laura looked at Marshall again, who continued to act as if he did not notice what was happening around him. He only cared about eating. He didn't say a word. The atmosphere at the table suddenly became tense. Even the young Anton noticed the serious atmosphere. He put down his spoon and lowered his head without saying anything. Only May was still loudly saying,
Grandma, I still want to eat big prawns.
Okay, Wendy had not finished speaking when she heard Marshall holler. The vegetables that had been on his fork fell to the ground.
Son, what happened?
Wendy quickly put down her own utensils and asked with concern.